Have you ever made a choice in a split second that changed everything? Not just your day or your week, but your entire life? Naomi Williams never believed in fate or destiny. She believed in hard work, in putting one foot in front of the other, in surviving another day in a city that seemed determined to grind her down. But on a cold November night in Chicago, fate found her anyway. The wind cut through Naomi's thin jacket as she hurried down South Wabash Avenue, her breath forming small clouds in the freezing air. She was late. Again. Her second job at the 24-hour diner started in 15 minutes, and she still had 8 blocks to go. The nursing assistant shift at St. Mary's Hospital had run over because Mr. Johnson in room 304 refused to let anyone else help him to the bathroom. He always asked for her, always waited for her shift. "You got gentle hands," he told her every time. "And you don't look at me like I'm already dead." Naomi didn't mind staying, late for Mr. Johnson. The old man reminded her of her grandfather. And besides, she needed every hour she could get. Medical school tuition didn't pay itself, and her student loans were already suffocating. The 2 jobs plus weekend shifts barely covered rent in her shared apartment in Pilsen and the minimum payments on her debt. She was so focused on checking her phone for the time that she almost didn't notice the black SUV idling at the curb ahead. Almost. Something made her look up. Maybe it was the expensive purr of its engine, out of place in this neighborhood. Maybe it was the way it sat with its lights off, predatory and patient. Or maybe it was just instinct. The same instinct that had kept her alive in tougher neighborhoods than this. Naomi slowed her pace. Her nursing bag clutched tighter against her side. The street was oddly empty for 7 in the evening. A few cars passed, their headlights cutting through the November darkness, but no other pedestrians. The restaurants and shops that lined this part of Wabash were closed or closing, their windows dark. She should have taken the bus. She should have called in sick to the diner. She should have done a lot of things. The SUV's door opened. A man stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a long black coat that probably cost more than Naomi's entire wardrobe. Even from 30 feet away, she could see the sharp lines of his face, the way he moved with absolute confidence, like he owned not just the car but the entire street, the entire city. His dark hair was styled perfectly despite the wind, and when he turned his head, she caught a glimpse of a strong jaw and eyes that seemed to catch and reflect every bit of available light. He wasn't alone. 2 more men emerged from the vehicle, flanking him like shadows. They wore similar dark coats, but there was something different about them, something harder. Their eyes scanned the street with practiced efficiency, hands tucked inside their coats where Naomi suspected guns rested within easy reach. She should walk away. Every instinct screamed at her to cross the street, to take a different route, to be anywhere but here. But her feet kept moving forward because the diner was in this direction, and she was already late, and she couldn't afford to lose this job. She just needed to walk past them, keep her head down, mind her business, be invisible. That was the Chicago way. The main man, the one who was clearly in charge, checked his watch. It was elegant, catching the streetlight, probably a Rolex or something equally obscene. He said something in Italian to his companions, his voice low and smooth, cultured, not the voice of a street thug. This was money, power, danger wrapped in expensive tailoring. Naomi was 20 feet away now. She could cross the street, but that would be obvious, would draw attention. Better to just walk past quickly, eyes down, another working person trying to get through their day. Invisible, 15 feet. Then she saw the second vehicle. It appeared from nowhere, screeching around the corner from Jackson Boulevard with its lights off. A dark sedan, older and less refined than the SUV, but moving with deadly purpose. Naomi's nursing training kicked in before her brain fully processed what was happening. Trauma recognition, threat assessment, the way the car was moving, the angle, the speed. This wasn't a random driver. 10 feet from the man in the expensive coat. The sedan's window rolled down. "Gun!" The word ripped from Naomi's throat before she could think, before she could stop herself, before survival instinct could override the deeper instinct to warn, to help, to save. Everything happened in fragments of seconds that felt like hours. The man in the coat turned toward her voice, confusion flickering across his handsome features. His bodyguards reached for their weapons, but they were looking at her, not at the real threat. The sedan's window was fully down. Now. Naomi saw the barrel of the gun, saw the arm extended, saw the finger on the trigger. She didn't decide to move. Her body decided for her. Naomi dropped her nursing bag and ran, not away from the danger but straight toward it. 3 steps. 4. Her orthopedic shoes, ugly but practical, gripped the sidewalk. The man in the coat still looked confused, his dark eyes meeting hers in that suspended moment, and she saw something flash across his face. Surprise, recognition of the danger, the beginning of movement. Too slow. He was moving too slow. Naomi crashed into him with all her 130 pounds of determination and terror. Her shoulder caught him in the chest, her momentum carrying them both backward. He was solid, muscled beneath the expensive coat, and for a heartbeat, she thought she might not move him at all. Then they were falling. The gunshots sounded like the end of the world. Sharp cracks that echoed off the buildings, one after another. 3, 4, 5. Naomi felt the man's arms come around her as they hit the ground, felt him twist his body to take the impact. She heard shouting, more gunshots, the squeal of tires, and then burning, searing pain that radiated from her left shoulder like someone had pressed a branding iron against her skin. Naomi gasped, her vision going white at the edges. The man beneath her was shouting something in Italian, urgent and commanding. His bodyguards returned fire, the sounds deafening this close. The sedan was speeding away, smoke pouring from its back window where one of the bodyguard's shots had found its mark. Dio mio, the man beneath her breathed. Don't move, Bella. But Naomi was already moving, or trying to. She needed to get up, needed to run, needed to make it to work because she couldn't afford to lose another job. Her body disagreed, going heavy and uncooperative. Her left arm wasn't working right. When she looked down, she saw blood. Her jacket, spreading across the white fabric of her nursing scrubs underneath. I was shot, she said stupidly, as if saying it out loud would make it make sense. I was shot. Marco, the car. Now. The man's voice cracked like a whip, all trace of confusion gone. He was sitting up now, cradling her against his chest with surprising gentleness given the command in his voice. Stay with me. Eyes on me, Bella. What's your name? Naomi. Her voice sounded far away, like someone else was speaking. I have to go to work. I'm late. You're not going to work. His face filled her vision, and even through the shock and pain, she noticed how striking he was. Dark eyes that held both steel and something that might have been fear. Sharp cheekbones. A mouth set in a grim line. You're going to the hospital. Can't afford it. The words came out slurred. When had her tongue gotten so heavy? No insurance. Well, bad insurance. High deductible. I'm already in debt from school. Dio. She's in shock. He was moving now, lifting her effortlessly as he stood. Naomi wanted to protest, to tell him she could walk, but her body had other ideas. Everything felt distant and cold except for the burning in her shoulder. I'll carry you. The car is coming. You're really strong, Naomi heard herself say. And pretty. Very pretty. Are you a model? Despite everything, he almost smiled. Almost. Something like that. Stay awake, Bella. Tell me about yourself. You're a nurse? Nursing assistant. Important distinction. She'd worked too hard to let anyone confuse the two. Studying to be a nurse, maybe a doctor. Haven't decided. Depends on how much more debt I can handle. Did you know medical school can cost $300,000? That's insane. Who has that kind of money? Keep talking. The SUV screeched to a stop beside them. One of the bodyguards jumped out and opened the back door. I need to hear your voice. Why? Naomi asked, as he slid into the back seat, with her still in his arms. The leather was soft against her cheek. Expensive. Probably Italian. Everything about this man seemed expensive. Are you going to kill me for seeing what I saw? I don't even know what I saw. I don't know who you are. I'm not going to kill you. His voice was firm, certain. You saved my life. Oh, that seemed important. But Naomi couldn't quite grasp why through the fog filling her head. That's good. I'm glad. Killing people is wrong. Even pretty people. The bodyguard in the front seat was talking rapidly into a phone in Italian. The man holding her responded sharply, his arms tightening around Naomi as the SUV accelerated. She could feel his heart beating, strong and fast against her cheek. Living, still alive because she'd crashed into him like a linebacker. What's your name? She asked. It seemed important to know the name of someone who was holding you while you bled all over their expensive coat. He hesitated. Just for a moment. Dante. Like the poet. Her English lit class felt like a lifetime ago, but some things stuck. The one who wrote about hell. The inferno. That's appropriate. Why appropriate? Because I think I'm dying. The cold was getting worse. spreading from her extremities toward her core. She was shivering despite being pressed against his warm chest. And you feel like sin wrapped in a really nice suit. You're not dying. He said it like a command. Like his will alone could keep her alive. And you didn't sin. You saved a man's life. That's the opposite of sin. Unless you're a bad man. The words came out before Naomi could stop them. Are you a bad man, Dante? Another hesitation, longer this time. Yes. Oh, she should be scared. She was bleeding in a strange car with admitted bad men, racing through Chicago toward an unknown destination. But fear required energy she didn't have. Well, at least you're honest. Hospital in 2 minutes, boss, the driver said in accented English. Not a hospital she could afford, Naomi thought hazily. They were heading north, toward the Gold Coast where the real money lived, toward Northwestern Memorial or Rush University Medical Center, where rooms cost more per night than her rent. I really can't afford, she started. I'm paying. Dante's voice left no room for argument. For everything. It's the least I can do. That's very nice. Naomi's eyes were getting heavy. The cold felt almost comfortable now, like slipping into a warm bath. You're nice for a bad man. Naomi. His voice sharpened. Stay awake. Look at me. She forced her eyes open, found his dark gaze locked on her face. There was something intense in his expression, something that cut through even the shock and blood loss. Fear. This dangerous, powerful man was afraid. For her. Why did you do it? He asked. You don't know me. You could have walked away. Couldn't. The explanation seemed obvious, though putting it into words was hard. Saw the gun. Saw you. You were going to die. I'm a nursing assistant. We save people. It's what we do. You're not on duty. Always on duty. Her lips felt numb, but she tried to smile. Goes with the territory. Can't turn it off. Believe me. I've tried. Do you know how exhausting it is caring about everyone all the time? I don't, actually. His thumb was stroking her cheek now, gentle, grounding. But I'm learning. The SUV screeched to a stop. Doors opened. Sudden cold air and bright lights assaulted Naomi's senses. Dante was moving, carrying her through automatic doors into warmth and noise and the familiar smell of disinfectant that meant hospital. She'd spent so much time in hospitals lately, between school and work, that the smell was almost comforting. Gunshot wound. Left shoulder. Dante was saying to someone in scrubs. She's lost a lot of blood. She needs a surgeon now. Sir, you can't just... A security guard was saying. I can, and I am. Dante's voice dropped to something. Dangerous. Get Dr. Hassan. Tell him Dante Moretti is calling in every favor he's ever done for this hospital. Tell him I need his best surgeon here in 5 minutes or I'm buying this hospital and firing everyone. The security guard's face went pale. He nodded and ran. Moretti. The name meant something. Naomi could see it in the reactions of everyone around them, in the sudden tension, the quick obedience. A nurse was rushing forward with a gurney. Not arguing. Not asking for insurance information or identification. Just moving with efficient urgency. Who are you? Naomi whispered as Dante laid her gently on the gurney. He looked down at her, his hand still holding hers, blood, her blood, staining his expensive white shirt cuff. Someone who owes you everything. Then, the world tilted and blurred, voices becoming white noise, bright lights becoming tunnels, and Naomi surrendered to the darkness pulling her down, down, down into its cold embrace. Her last coherent thought was that she was definitely getting fired from the diner. Naomi woke to the sound of machines beeping steadily and the smell of antiseptic. Hospital. She was in a hospital. For a confused moment, she thought she'd fallen asleep during her shift at St. Mary's and someone was going to write her up for sleeping on the job. Then the pain hit. Not sharp like when she'd been shot, but a deep, throbbing ache that radiated from her left shoulder through her entire upper body. She tried to move and immediately regretted it, gasping as the pain intensified. Don't move. The voice was male, deep, accented, familiar. The surgeon said you need to stay still for at least 48 hours. Naomi turned her head carefully, slowly, toward the voice. The room came into focus gradually. Private room, not a shared one. Large windows showing a nighttime cityscape, expensive equipment, and sitting in a chair beside her bed, looking exhausted and rumpled in a way that somehow made him even more attractive, was the man from the street, Dante. He'd removed his blood-stained coat and jacket. His white shirt was rolled up at the sleeves, also stained with her blood, his dark hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. But his eyes were alert, fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You're still here," Naomi said, her voice raspy. "Where else would I be? I don't know. Doing bad man things?" The medication made her tongue loose. "You said you were a bad man." A slight smile touched his lips. "Even bad men have obligations." "You saved my life, Naomi Williams. That creates a debt. You know my full name." "I know everything," he said it matter-of-factly. "Your birthday is March 15th. You grew up on the South Side. Your mother died when you were 12. Your father when you were 19. You put yourself through community college, graduated top of your class, and you're currently working 2 jobs while studying for your nursing boards. You have $167,000 in student loan debt. You're 3 months behind on your rent, and your landlord is threatening eviction." Naomi stared at him. "That's creepy. That's thoroughness." He leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "You threw yourself in front of a bullet for a stranger. I needed to know who you were. So you ran a background check. Several. Are you FBI? A cop?" Even as she said it, she knew it was wrong. Law enforcement didn't move the way he moved, didn't command the way he commanded, and they definitely didn't make hospital administrators jump like trained dogs. "No." Dante's smile widened slightly, not quite reaching his eyes. Quite the opposite. Memories flooded back. The SUV, the gunshots, the way everyone in the hospital had reacted to his name. Moretti. She'd heard that name before, whispered in the break room at St. Mary's, mentioned in news reports about organized crime in Chicago. "Your mob," she said. Not a question. "I prefer businessman with Sicilian heritage. But yes. Yes." Naomi closed her eyes, suddenly exhausted despite having just woken up. "I saved a mobster. You saved a man." His voice was softer now. "A man who would be dead if not for your courage. Or stupidity. I haven't decided which. Can't it be both?" There was something almost affectionate in his tone. "The surgeon said you're lucky. The bullet missed your brachial artery by centimeters. It shattered your clavicle and did some muscle damage, but you'll recover fully with physical therapy." "Lucky." Naomi opened her eyes again, looking at the IV in her arm, the monitors, the expensive private room. "How much is this costing?" "Nothing. You're not paying anything. I can't let you. You already did." Dante stood, moving to the window. Against the Chicago skyline, he looked like something from a movie. All dangerous grace and contained power. Everything is taken care of. The surgery, the room, the rehabilitation, your medications, and your debts. All of them. Naomi's heart stuttered. "What?" "Your student loans are paid. Your rent is current for the next year. I've also paid your landlord enough to make him forget he ever considered evicting you." He turned back to face her. "You saved my life, Naomi. This is just the beginning of repaying that debt. You can't just pay off my debts." Her voice rose, causing pain to shoot through her shoulder. She winced but kept talking. That's too much. I don't even know you. You know enough." He moved back to the chair, sitting down with fluid grace. "You know I'm dangerous. You know I'm in a position to help you. And you know I always pay my debts. This isn't a debt. I didn't save you expecting payment." "I know." His eyes held hers, dark and intense. "That's why you're going to accept it." There was something in his voice, something that suggested argument was futile. Naomi had heard that tone before, from doctors who knew their patient needed to follow orders or die. The voice of absolute authority. But she'd never been good at following orders when they didn't make sense. "I don't want to be bought," she said quietly. Dante's expression shifted, something that might have been hurt flickering across his features before disappearing behind his usual mask of control. "I'm not buying you. I'm thanking you. There's a difference." "Is there? In your world?" He was quiet for a long moment. "In my world, gifts come with expectations. Favors are currency. Debts are chains." He leaned forward again, and Naomi could smell his cologne now, something expensive and subtle. "But what you did wasn't part of my world. You didn't know who I was. You didn't know what saving me would mean. You just saw someone in danger and you acted. That kind of selflessness doesn't exist in my life. Maybe you need to expand your social circle." A genuine laugh escaped him, surprising. "Them both. Maybe I do." His expression grew serious again. "Accept the help, Naomi. Not because you owe me anything, but because it's the right thing for me to do. Let me do one right thing." There was something vulnerable in that last sentence, Something that made Naomi see past the expensive clothes and the dangerous power to the man underneath. A man who'd just survived an assassination attempt. A man who'd held her while she bled. Who'd stayed by her hospital bed all night based on the stubble shadowing his jaw and the exhaustion in his eyes. A man who thought he needed to pay for kindness because he'd experienced so little of it. "Okay," she whispered. His eyes widened slightly. "Okay, I'll accept the help. The medical bills, the rent, that's practical." She took a shaky breath. "But not the student loans. I'll pay those myself. Naomi, I need to." She cut him off, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice, despite the pain medication making her fuzzy. I worked for that education. I earned that debt. Paying it off is my responsibility, my accomplishment. Do you understand?" For a moment, she thought he'd argue. Then slowly, he nodded. "I understand." Good. Exhaustion was pulling at her again, dragging her back toward sleep. "Now you should go home. Get some rest. You look terrible." Another almost smile. "You have a bullet wound and you're worried about how I look?" "I'm a nursing assistant. Worrying is my job." Her eyes were already closing. "Besides, you're still pretty even when you look terrible. Doesn't seem fair." The last word trailed off as sleep claimed her again, pulling her into darkness that was warmer and safer than before, like arms around her in the back of an SUV, like a voice promising she wouldn't die, like a debt being paid in ways that had nothing to do with money. 3 days passed in a haze of pain medication and healing. Dante came every day, usually in the evening when visiting hours were. Technically over, but apparently not for him. He never stayed long, just checked on her, spoke quietly with her nurses, and sat in the chair by her bed reading Italian newspapers until she fell asleep. It was both comforting and unsettling. On the 4th day, Naomi was finally clear-headed enough to fully appreciate how weird this situation was. A mob boss was visiting her daily in the hospital. The same mob boss whose life she'd saved was paying for her medical care and had somehow convinced the hospital staff to treat her like visiting royalty. The same mob boss who looked at her sometimes like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "You don't have to keep coming here," Naomi said during his evening visit. She was sitting up now, her arm in a sling, feeling more human and less like a medical experiment. "I'm fine. The nurses said I can probably go home tomorrow." Dante looked up from his newspaper. He was dressed less formally today, in dark jeans and a black sweater that did nothing to diminish his aura of danger. "I know. I spoke to Dr. Patel this morning." "Of course you did." Naomi tried to keep the irritation from her voice. "Do you have spies everywhere?" "Not spies, connections." He folded the newspaper carefully, setting it aside. "And I need to discuss your going home with you." Something in his tone made Naomi nervous. "What about it?" "You can't go back to your apartment." "Excuse me?" Dante stood, moving to the window. His favorite position, she'd noticed, whenever he had to say something difficult. "The men who tried to kill me know I survived. They'll be looking for leverage, for weaknesses. You're a witness. More than that, you're someone I've shown interest in. That makes you a target." The words sent ice through Naomi's veins. A target. "I have enemies, Naomi. Dangerous people who wouldn't hesitate to use you to get to me." He turned to face her, and the concern in his expression was genuine. "Your apartment isn't secure. The building has no doorman, no cameras. 28 units spread across 4 floors. Anyone could get to you. So what are you suggesting? I stay in the hospital forever?" "I'm suggesting you stay somewhere safe. Somewhere I can protect you." The implication hung heavy in the air. "You want me to stay with you?" "In one of my properties, yes. I have a building in River North, fully secured, with excellent security. You'd have your own apartment, complete privacy, everything you need. And guards watching my every move." "Yes." At least he was honest. Naomi ran her good hand through her hair, which badly needed washing. Her whole life was falling apart. She'd lost both her jobs. She was recovering from a gunshot wound, and now she couldn't even go home because she'd inadvertently made herself a mob target. "For how long?" she asked. "Until it's safe." "Which is when?" Dante's jaw tightened. "I don't know. So indefinite. I'll make sure you're comfortable. You'll have access to physical therapy, anything you need. And once you've recovered, if you want to work, I can arrange." "Stop." Naomi held up her good hand. "Just stop. You're talking about controlling my entire life. I'm talking about keeping you alive." His voice rose slightly, frustration bleeding through his usual control. "Those men will kill you, Naomi. Not quickly. Not mercifully. They'll use you to hurt me. to send a message, and when they're done, they'll dump your body in the Chicago River like trash. Is that what you want? The bluntness of it stole her breath. No. Then let me protect you. He crossed back to her bedside, and for the first time, she saw fear in his eyes again, real and raw. Please, I can't. He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. I can't let anything happen to you. Not when you saved me. Not when this is my fault. It's not your fault. I jumped in front of a bullet. It's my fault there was a bullet. He sat down heavily in the chair, looking suddenly exhausted. It's my fault you're hurt. My fault your life is in danger. Let me fix it. Naomi looked at him. This dangerous, powerful man who was begging her to accept his protection. She thought about her tiny, inadequate apartment in Pilsen, about walking home alone at night from the bus stop, about being unable to defend herself with her arm in a sling, unable to run if danger found her. He was right. She hated that he was right, but he was. One condition, she said finally. His head jerked up. Name it. I'm not a prisoner. I need to feel like I have some control over my life, even if it's an illusion. So I get to come and go, with guards if necessary, but I get to go. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. During the day, with 2 bodyguards. And you check in regularly, 3 times a day, every 2 hours, every 4 hours, and only when I'm out of the building. Fine. He extended his hand. Do we have a deal? Naomi looked at his offered hand. This was insane. She was making a deal with a mob boss, agreeing to move into his property, accepting his protection. Everything about this screamed danger, warned her to run as far and as fast as her injured body would let her. But the alternative was worse. And something about Dante, despite everything, felt safe. He'd held her while she bled. He'd stayed by her hospital bed. He looked at her like she mattered, like her life had value beyond just the debt he felt he owed. She took his hand. His grip was warm, firm, careful of her injuries. Deal, she said. Relief washed over his features, so profound it almost looked like pain. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm going to be a terrible houseguest. That almost smile appeared again. I'm counting on it. The building in River North was, of course, gorgeous. 20 stories of luxury apartments with a doorman, security cameras, and at least 3 men Naomi could identify as Dante's people in the first 5 minutes. The apartment itself was on the 18th floor, a 2-bedroom unit with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River. This is too much, Naomi said for approximately the 10th time as Dante showed her around. Her meager possessions, packed up from her old apartment by people she'd never met, looked pathetic in the spacious living room. It's what was available. Dante opened the curtains in the main bedroom, revealing a view that probably cost more per month than she'd made in a year. The refrigerator is stocked. There's a tablet on the counter with my private number programmed in. If you need anything at all, you call me. What if I need groceries? Do I call the Mafia Boss for milk? Yes. He said it without irony. Or my housekeeper. Her number is also programmed in. She'll do any shopping you need. Naomi sat down gingerly on the couch, which was probably Italian leather and definitely cost more than her car, back when she'd had a car. You've thought of everything. I try. He checked his watch. A different one from the night she'd been shot, but equally expensive. I need to go. Business. But Marco and Luca are stationed in the lobby, and there are 2 more men on this floor. You're completely safe. Completely surrounded, you mean? Same thing. He moved toward the door, then paused. Get some rest. Start your physical therapy next week. And Naomi? She looked up. Yeah? Thank you. For giving me a chance to do this right. Then he was gone, leaving her alone in an apartment that felt more like a gilded cage than a home, but a cage she'd agreed to. A cage that was keeping her alive. Naomi leaned back against the couch cushions and closed her eyes. What had she gotten herself into? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Make yourself at home. You're not a prisoner. You're a guest. D. Despite everything, she smiled. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. Maybe she could survive a few weeks, or months in luxury while Dante dealt with his enemies. Maybe she could use this time to heal, to study, to figure out what came next. Maybe she could ignore the way her heart had stuttered when Dante's hand touched hers, the way his concern felt more intimate than any relationship she'd had in years, the way his eyes held promises of protection that felt dangerously close to something more. Maybe, but probably not. The first week in the River North apartment was strange. Naomi felt like a bird in a golden cage, comfortable but confined. She could go out, but always with Marco and Luca trailing behind her like well-dressed shadows. She could order anything she wanted, but every delivery was vetted by security. She was safe, protected, cared for in ways she'd never experienced, and it was driving her crazy. Dante visited every evening, sometimes for an hour, sometimes just for a few minutes. He'd check on her shoulder, ask about her day, make sure she had everything she needed. Their conversations were polite, careful, dancing around the elephant in the room, that she was there because of him, because saving his life had upended hers completely. On the 8th night, Naomi decided to break the pattern. She'd made dinner, real dinner, not takeout or something from the refrigerator that Dante's housekeeper had stocked. She'd spent the afternoon in the apartment's gourmet kitchen making her grandmother's recipe for smothered chicken, mac and cheese from scratch, and collard greens that had taken 3 hours to cook properly. Her shoulder ached from the effort, but it felt good to do something normal, something that was hers. When Dante knocked at 7, she answered the door wearing jeans and an old Howard University sweatshirt, her hair in its natural coils instead of the protective styles she usually wore around him. He froze, his hand still raised from knocking. "You cooked." "I did. You hungry?" He looked genuinely off balance for the Stom, first time since she'd met him. "I had plans to eat at one of my restaurants." "Cancel them." She stepped aside to let him in. "You've been taking care of me for over a week. Let me return the favor." Something shifted in his expression, something soft and surprised. "You don't have to." "I know. I want to." She gestured toward the dining table she'd set. "Besides, I was going crazy, not doing anything useful. Cooking kept me sane." Dante stepped inside, and Naomi caught the scent of his cologne mixed with something else, something sharper. Gunpowder. He'd been at a shooting range, she realized, or somewhere guns had been fired, doing dangerous things while she'd been safe in this apartment cooking dinner. "Let me wash up," he said quietly. 10 minutes later, they sat across from each other at the dining table, the Chicago skyline glittering through the windows behind them. Dante had removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, and there was something intimate about seeing him. This way, less polished, more human. He took a bite of the chicken and closed his eyes. "This is incredible. It's my grandmother's recipe. She said the secret was patience and butter, lots of butter. She was a wise woman." He took another bite, savoring it. "When did she pass?" "I was 16. It was sudden. Heart attack." Naomi pushed collard greens around her plate. "She raised me after my mom died, taught me how to cook, how to be strong, how to take care of people." "Is that why you became a nursing assistant?" "Partly. Mostly because I wanted to help people." "Sounds naive, I know. It sounds beautiful." Dante set down his fork, his dark eyes serious. "The world doesn't have enough people who genuinely want to help others." "Your world doesn't, you mean?" He didn't deny it. "No. My world is built on transactions. Everything has a price. Everyone has an angle. Trust is a liability. Kindness is weakness." "That sounds lonely." "It is." The admission seemed to surprise him. "I've been alone for a long time, Naomi. By choice, mostly. It's safer that way." But you jumped in front of a bullet for a complete stranger." He leaned back in his chair studying her. "You didn't calculate the cost or weigh the odds. You just acted. I've never met anyone like you." Heat crept up Naomi's neck. "I'm not special. I just did what anyone would do." "No." His voice was firm. "What you did was extraordinary. And it's changed everything." The weight of those words hung between them. Changed everything for him, or for both of them. Naomi wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. "Tell me about your family," she said, changing the subject. "Do you have siblings? Parents?" Dante's expression closed off slightly. "My mother lives in Naples. She's retired now. Thinks I'm in legitimate business. Real estate, imports, that sort of thing." "Does she know the truth?" "She knows enough not to ask questions." He picked up his wine glass, swirling the red, liquid. "My father died when I was 23. Heart attack, like your grandmother. One day he was here, the next he was gone, and I inherited everything. The business, the responsibilities, the enemies. That's young to take on so much. I didn't have a choice. In my world, weakness gets you killed. I had to be strong, had to be ruthless, had to make people fear me." His jaw tightened. I've done things, Naomi. Terrible things. I'm not a good man. You've said that before. Because it's true. Maybe. She met his gaze steadily. But you're also a man who's visited me every day while I've been recovering. Who's made sure I have everything I need? Who's protecting me from your enemies even though it would be easier to just send me away somewhere safe and forget about me? I couldn't forget about you if I tried. The words came out low, almost rough. Believe me, I've tried. Naomi's breath caught. There was something in his eyes now, something heated and intense that made her skin prickle with awareness. This was dangerous territory, more dangerous than anything they'd discussed before. Dante, I should go. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Thank you for dinner. It was perfect. You don't have to leave. Yes, I do. He grabbed his jacket, his movements tense. At the door, he paused, his back to her. I'm trying to do the right thing here, Naomi. I'm trying to protect you, to give you what you need, to keep my distance. But when you look at me like that, when you cook for me and let me see you like this, natural and beautiful and so far from my world. He turned, and the naked want in his eyes stole her breath. It makes me want things I have no right to want. Then he was gone, leaving Naomi alone with the remains of dinner and a heart that was beating far too fast, her mind spinning with the implications of what he'd just admitted. He wanted her. The dangerous mob boss wanted her. And God help her, she was starting to want him back. 2 weeks passed in a strange dance of tension and restraint. Dante still visited, but he kept his distance now, never staying long, never letting their conversations drift into personal territory. Naomi told herself she was relieved. She threw herself into physical therapy, into studying for her nursing boards, into anything that would distract her from the way her pulse jumped every time she heard his knock at the door. But at night, alone in the too large bed, she couldn't stop thinking about the look in his eyes when he'd said he wanted things he had no right to want. Couldn't stop wondering what would have happened if he'd stayed, if he'd crossed that line, if she'd let him. It was probably for the best that she didn't know. Everything changed on a Tuesday afternoon. Naomi was out with Marco and Luca, walking along the Riverwalk despite the December cold. She was bundled in a new coat, courtesy of Dante's housekeeper, her arm still in a sling, but healing well. The physical therapist said another few weeks and she'd have full mobility back. Miss Williams. Marco's voice was tense. We should head back. Naomi turned to see both bodyguards had gone rigid, their hands inside their jackets where she knew they kept their guns. Following their gaze, she saw 3 men approaching from the direction they'd been walking, 3 more behind them, cutting off their retreat. Not just men, dangerous men, with the same predatory walk, the same cold eyes she'd seen on the men who'd tried to kill Dante. Naomi Williams? The man in front smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. We'd like to have a conversation with you. She's not interested. Marco stepped in front of her, Luca moving to her other side. Walk away. Can't do that. The man's smile widened. See, she's caused some problems for our organization. Saved someone who should have died. We need to correct that mistake. Everything happened fast. Marco and Luca drew their Enizitter, weapons, but they were outnumbered. Shots fired, shattering the afternoon peace. Screams from other people on the Riverwalk, everyone diving for cover. Marco went down, blood blooming on his shoulder. Luca was fighting hand-to-hand with 2 men, buying time. For her, Naomi ran. Her shoulder screamed in protest, her feet slipping on the winter-slick pavement, but she ran anyway. Behind her, more gunshots. Someone was chasing her, footsteps pounding. The Riverwalk was chaos, people scattering, sirens already wailing in the distance. She made it to State Street, barely, before a hand grabbed her good arm, spinning her around. It was the smiling man, not smiling anymore. He had a gun pressed against her ribs. Got her, he said into a phone, bringing her in. No. The word came out as a plea. Please, I don't know anything. I just saved a man's life. That's all. That man is a problem. Your leverage. He started dragging her toward a waiting SUV, black and anonymous. Boss. Wants to send a message. Naomi fought, kicking, screaming, doing everything she could despite her injured shoulder. But he was stronger, and the gun against her ribs kept her from fighting too hard. This was it. This was how she died, dragged into an SUV by mob enforcers who wanted to use her to hurt Dante. Then the smiling man's head exploded. That was the only way to describe it. 1 second he was dragging her. The next his grip went slack and he fell. And Naomi saw brain matter on her coat before she could process what had happened. Sniper. Someone had shot him from a distance. More shots. The other men near the SUV went down in quick succession, efficient and brutal. Naomi stood frozen, covered in blood that wasn't hers, her mind refusing to process the carnage around her. "Naomi!" Dante's voice, urgent and commanding. She turned to see him running toward her, flanked by at least 8 armed men. His face was a mask of fury and fear. "Are you hurt? Were you shot?" She couldn't speak, could only shake her head as he reached her, his hands moving over her, checking for injuries with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Finding the blood, his face going pale. "It's not mine," she managed to whisper. He grabbed me and then, "I know." Dante pulled her against his chest, his heart hammering against her ear. "I know, Bella. You're safe now. I've got you." Police sirens were getting closer. Dante was shouting orders in Italian, his men moving with precision. Someone draped a clean coat over her shoulders, replacing the blood-stained one. Someone else was talking to approaching officers, flashing badges that made them step back. "Marco?" Naomi asked against Dante's chest. "Alive. Being taken to the hospital." His arms tightened around her. "I'm sorry. This is my fault. I should have sent more men. Should have anticipated." Shh. Despite everything, despite the blood and violence and terror, Naomi found herself comforting him. "I'm okay. I'm alive. Because my sniper team was following you." His voice was rough. If they'd been even a minute later. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. One of his men approached, speaking rapidly in Italian. Dante responded in the same language, his tone deadly. Whatever he was saying made the other man pale and nod rapidly. "We need to leave," Dante said, switching back to English. "The police will handle this scene, but I need to get you somewhere more secure. The apartment is compromised. They knew where you were, knew your routine." He was already moving, guiding her toward a different SUV, this one armored. "I'm taking you to my house. My actual house. No one knows about it except my most trusted people." Naomi let him guide her, too shocked to protest. She was placed in the back of the SUV, Dante sliding in beside her, his arm around her shoulders. As they pulled away from the scene, from the bodies and blood and shattered piece of her afternoon walk, reality started to sink in. They'd tried to take her. Would have succeeded if not for Dante's paranoia, his sniper team, his resources. The smiling man's final words echoed in her mind. Boss wants to send a message. She'd become a message, a way to hurt Dante, and she'd almost died because of it. "I can't do this." The words tumbled out. "I can't live like this, always looking over my shoulder, always surrounded by guards, always one step away from being taken or killed. I can't." "I know." Dante's voice was quiet, defeated. "I know, and I'm sorry. I thought I could protect you, thought I could keep you safe while dealing with this threat. But I was wrong. So what happens now?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Now I end this, permanently." The coldness in his voice made Naomi shiver. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to war." He looked at her, and his eyes held a darkness that was both terrifying and strangely comforting. "No more restraint. No more trying to minimize casualties or handle this quietly. They came after you. They tried to take you. That crosses a line even in my world. People will die. Yes. Because of me. No." He cupped her face with one hand, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Because of them. Because they're animals who don't understand that some things are sacred. Some lines you don't cross. I'm not sacred. I'm just a woman who made a stupid choice. You're a woman who saved my life." His thumb brushed her cheek, gentle despite the violence in his voice. "You're a woman who cooks dinner for a monster and looks at him like he might be something more. You're a woman who He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "You matter, Naomi, more than anything. And I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let anyone hurt you again." The declaration should have scared her. Instead, it made something deep in her chest clench with an emotion she didn't want to name. This was madness. She was falling for a man who killed people, who was promising to start a war for her, who lived in a world of violence and blood. But when he looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his universe, when his hands held her with such careful gentleness, when his voice went soft with promises of protection, she couldn't help it. She was falling in love with Dante Moretti. Dante's house was not what Naomi expected. Hidden in Lake Forest, 30 miles north of Chicago, it sat on 5 acres of wooded land, surrounded by security that was invisible until you knew to look for it. The house itself was modern, all glass and steel and clean lines, but somehow it felt warmer than the River North apartment. Maybe because it was his. Really his. The first place she'd seen that felt like Dante instead of just a property he owned. "There are 7 bedrooms," Dante said as he showed her inside. It was past midnight, and Naomi could see the exhaustion in his face despite his careful control. "You can have any room you want. The main bedroom is upstairs, east wing. I'm in the west wing. Maximum privacy." "Okay." Naomi was too tired to argue about anything. The adrenaline from the attack had long since worn off, leaving her hollow and shaky. One of Dante's men, this one younger with kind eyes, brought in bags. "Fresh clothes," he explained in accented English. "And your things from the apartment, Miss Williams. We'll bring more tomorrow." "Thank you." She took the bags on autopilot. Dante dismissed his men with a few words in Italian, leaving them alone in the soaring entryway. "Are you hungry?" "The kitchen is stocked." "I'm not hungry." Naomi set down the bags, suddenly overwhelmed by everything. I'm... The word wouldn't come. Tired? Scared? Traumatized? All of those things and more. Too many emotions crashing through her for any one word to capture them. "Come on." Dante took her good hand, his touch gentle. "Let me show you your room. You need to rest." He led her upstairs, down a hallway with original artwork on the walls, into a bedroom that took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the dark woods. A king-sized bed dominated the space, covered in soft linens. There was a fireplace, already lit, casting warm light across hardwood floors. "The bathroom is through there." Dante gestured to a door. "Everything you need should be stocked. But if not, just ask. I'll be down the hall if you need anything." He started to leave. "Don't go." The words came out before Naomi could stop them. Dante froze. "Naomi, I don't want to be alone." She hated how small her voice sounded. "I keep seeing it. His head. The blood. I know I'll see it when I close my eyes. I don't want to be alone." He turned slowly, conflict written across his face. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because I'm barely holding on to my control." His voice was raw. "Because having you in my house, in a bedroom, asking me to stay, it's taking everything I have, not to cross every line I've set for myself. What if I want you to cross those lines?" The words hung between them. Dangerous and electric. "You don't know what you're saying." Dante's hands clenched into fists. "You've had a traumatic day. You're in shock. Tomorrow you'll regret. Stop telling me what I'll feel tomorrow." Naomi crossed to him, using her good arm to grab his shirt. "I'm not a child. I know my own mind, and I know that I almost died today. I know that life is short and uncertain, and any moment could be my last. I know that when I thought I was going to be taken, the thing I regretted most was that I never told you." She stopped. The confession too big to finish. "Told me what?" His voice was barely a whisper. "That I feel safe with you." The truth spilled out. That you're the only person who's ever made me feel this protected, this valued, this seen. That when you look at me, I don't feel like just another struggling woman trying to survive. I feel like I matter. Like my life has meaning beyond just existing. You do matter." Dante raised his hand, cupping her face. "More than you could possibly know. Then stay." She leaned into his touch. "Not to do anything, just to be here, so I'm not alone with the nightmares." For a long moment she thought he'd refuse. Then slowly, achingly, he nodded. "I'll stay. But I'm sleeping on top of the covers, fully dressed. No crossing lines." Relief flooded through her. "Okay." They got ready for bed in awkward silence. Naomi changed in the bathroom, finding soft pajamas among the clothes that had been brought for her. When she came out, Dante was lying on top of the comforter, still in his dress shirt and pants, staring at the ceiling. Naomi climbed under the covers, her injured shoulder protesting. The bed was huge, yet somehow Dante's presence filled it, made the space feel intimate. She could smell his cologne, hear his breathing, feel the warmth radiating from him despite the covers between them. "Thank you," she whispered into the darkness. "For what?" "For saving me today. For caring enough to have people watching over me even when I didn't know it. For keeping me safe. Always." The word was a vow. "I will always keep you safe, Naomi, no matter what it costs." She wanted to respond, to tell him what his protection meant, what he meant, but exhaustion was pulling her down, and his presence was a comfort that made sleep possible despite the horrors of the day. Just before she drifted off, she felt his hand find hers over the covers, their fingers interlacing. Holding onto each other in the darkness, two people from different worlds finding something unexpected in the chaos, finding each other, Naomi woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she forgot where she was, forgot everything that had happened. Then memory crashed back. The attack, the blood, Dante bringing her here, Dante sleeping in her bed. She turned her head. He was gone, but the indent in the pillow and the lingering warmth told her he'd stayed most of the night. On the nightstand, she found a note in elegant script. Downstairs when you're ready. No rush. Naomi took her time getting up, showering carefully around her shoulder, dressing in jeans and a soft sweater. The bruises on her arm from where she'd been grabbed had darkened overnight, purple and ugly. She'd have nightmares about yesterday for a long time. Downstairs, she followed the smell of coffee to a kitchen that was somehow both state-of-the-art and cozy. Dante stood at the stove, cooking. Actually cooking, wearing jeans and a dark Henley, his hair slightly mussed, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. "You cook?" she asked from the doorway. He glanced over his shoulder, and the smile that crossed his face was genuine, warm. "My mother insisted. Said no son of hers would be helpless in a kitchen. I make excellent omelets. That's very domestic for a mob boss. I'm a man of many contradictions." He plated the omelet with practiced ease. "Sit. Eat. You barely touched food yesterday." Naomi sat at the kitchen island, accepting the plate he slid across to her. The omelet was perfect, fluffy, and filled with cheese and vegetables. "This is really good. I'm glad." Dante poured her coffee, then leaned against the counter, his own cup in hand. He looked tired, she noticed, like he hadn't slept much despite staying in her room. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we wait." His jaw tightened. "I have people working on locating the men responsible for yesterday. When we find them, I'll handle it." Handle it, meaning kill them. Yes, the bluntness shouldn't surprise her anymore, but it still sent a chill through her. "And then what? Their people come after you, after me, and the cycle continues?" "Not if I'm thorough enough." He set down his coffee. "This isn't just about revenge, Naomi. It's about sending a message so definitive that no one will ever come after you again. So you can have your life back." "What if I don't want my old life back?" The question hung between them. Dante's eyes locked on hers, dark and intense. "What do you want?" he asked softly. The honest answer terrified her. "I don't know. A month ago, I knew exactly what I wanted. To finish my nursing degree, pay off my loans, maybe eventually open a clinic in an underserved neighborhood. Simple goals. Achievable. And now? Now I've seen what your world looks like. I've been shot, attacked, protected by men with guns and money I can't imagine. I've had a mob boss cook me omelets in his secret house." She laughed, but it sounded slightly hysterical. "My old goals seem so small now. So inadequate." "They're not inadequate." Dante moved around the island, sitting on the stool next to hers. "They're beautiful. They're exactly what the world needs. People like you, who want to help, who care about others. People like me don't usually end up in situations like this." "No," he agreed. "They don't. But you did, and I'm selfish enough to be grateful for it, even though it's put you in danger." "Why grateful?" "Because you've shown me something I thought was lost." His hand found hers on the counter, his thumb tracing circles on her skin. "You've shown me that there are still people in the world who act without calculating the cost, who see someone in danger and jump to help them, who cook dinner for a monster and look at him like he might be human. You are human." Naomi turned her hand over, interlacing their fingers. "A complicated, dangerous, sometimes violent human, but human. With you, I feel human." The admission seemed to cost him something. "With everyone else, I'm the boss, the Moretti heir, the man to be feared and obeyed. But with you, I'm just Dante, a man who's falling in." He stopped abruptly, like he'd almost said too much. "Falling in what?" Naomi's heart was pounding. "Trouble." He said it lightly, but his eyes held heat. "Falling into so much trouble with you, Naomi Williams." It wasn't the confession she'd hoped for, but it was close enough to make her breath catch. They sat there, hands clasped, the morning sunlight warming them, and Naomi felt the pull of inevitability. This thing between them, whatever it was growing stronger. Every day, every moment they spent together, every time he looked at her like she was precious beyond measure. She was falling too, had already fallen, if she was honest with herself. Dante's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. They found them. The men from yesterday? All of them. And their boss. He stood, releasing her hand. I need to go handle this. Take me with you. Absolutely not. Dante. No. He cupped her face, his touch gentle despite the steel in his voice. You don't need to see what I'm about to do. You don't need that darkness in your head. It's already in my head. I watched a man's head explode yesterday. I can handle. This is different. He kissed her forehead, a brief press of lips that still managed to send warmth through her entire body. This is me being a monster. This is the part of my world you should never see. Please, stay here, stay safe. Let me do what I do best. The please did it. Dante Moretti, who commanded with absolute authority, was asking, begging, really, for her to be spared this part of his life. Okay, she whispered, but come back, and be careful. I'm always careful. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I have something to live for now. Then he was gone, leaving Naomi alone in his beautiful house with guards she couldn't see and thoughts she couldn't quiet, wondering what kind of darkness he was about to unleash, and whether she could love a man capable of such violence. The answer, terrifyingly, was yes. Dante returned 9 hours later, just as night was falling. Naomi had spent the day exploring the house, studying, trying to distract herself from imagining what he was doing. One of his men, the kind-eyed one named Alessandro, had brought her lunch and had sat with her for a while, telling her stories about Italy and carefully not mentioning what his boss was handling. When she heard the front door open, Naomi was in the library, a book unread in her lap. She heard his footsteps, heavy and tired, heard him speak quietly to whoever was with him, heard them leave. Then silence. She found him in the living room, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the dark woods. He'd showered and changed, she could tell, but there was something in his posture, something weary and pained, that made her heart clench. It's done? She asked quietly. It's done. His voice was flat. They'll never threaten you again. No one will. How many? Don't ask me that. How many? Dante? He turned to face her, and the expression in his eyes was bleak. 14. 14 men who were involved in yesterday's attack or who gave the orders, plus their operations, their safe houses, their financial structures. I dismantled everything. Sent a message so clear that my enemies and my allies both understand. You are untouchable. 14 men. 14 lives ended because they'd tried to take her, tried to use her. Naomi should be horrified. She was horrified. But she was also relieved and grateful, and that made her feel like a monster too. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what? Dante moved toward her, his steps slow. For making me care about someone enough to protect them? For giving me a reason to be ruthless when I needed to be? Don't apologize, Naomi. What I did today, I'd do 1,000 times over to keep you safe. That's what scares me. She met his gaze. Not that you did it, but that I'm glad you did. That I'm relieved, that some part of me wanted you to make them pay for what they tried to do. That makes you human, not a monster. He reached her, and his hands framed her face. You're allowed to be glad you're safe. You're allowed to be relieved that the threat is gone. That doesn't make you like me. What if I want to be like you? The question came from somewhere deep, somewhere honest. What if I'm tired of being the good girl who always does the right thing, who always thinks of others first, who never takes what she wants because it might be selfish? Naomi, I almost died. Twice. Once from a bullet, once from being grabbed by men who wanted to use me as a message. Her voice grew stronger, more certain, and both times, the only thing I could think was that I'd never taken chances, never reached for something just because I wanted it, never let myself be selfish. What do you want to be selfish about? You. The confession was raw, honest. I want you, Dante. Not as my protector or my savior or the man who owes me a debt. I want you as a man. The man who cooks omelets and visits me every day and looks at me like I'm the most important thing in his world. You are. The words came out rough. You're the most important thing in my world, Naomi. You're the only good thing I have. And that's why I can't. She kissed him. It was clumsy, her good arm reaching up to pull his head down, her lips finding his with more enthusiasm than skill. For a heartbeat, Dante froze. Then he groaned. A sound of surrender and desire, and kissed her back. It was like nothing Naomi had ever experienced. His lips were warm and firm, moving against hers with a skill that made her knees weak. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head to deepen the kiss. and when his tongue traced her lower lip, she opened for him eagerly. The kiss went from gentle to consuming in seconds. Dante's control shattered, replaced by a hunger that matched her own. His hands moved down her back, pulling her closer, careful of her injured shoulder but otherwise holding nothing back. Naomi pressed against him, feeling the solid warmth of his body, the rapid beat of his heart, the evidence of his desire. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. "This is a mistake. I don't care. You should. My world is violent and dark. Being with me puts you at even more risk. More risk than I'm already in?" She laughed breathlessly. "Dante, they already tried to kill me. They already see me as yours. The only question is whether I actually get to be yours or if I'm just protected property. You're not property." He pulled back enough to look at her, his eyes blazing. "You could never be property. You're—" He struggled with the words. "You're everything. Then have me. Have everything." "God, Naomi." He kissed her again, softer this time but no less intense. "Are you sure? Once we cross this line, I won't be able to let you go. I'm not built that way. If I have you, I'm keeping you." The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it sent heat pooling in her belly. "Good. Because I'm not interested in being let go." That was all the permission he needed. Dante scooped her up, mindful of her shoulder, and carried her toward the stairs. Naomi wrapped her good arm around his neck, kissing his jaw, his throat, anywhere she could reach. He groaned, taking the stairs two at a time. "Your room or mine?" he asked. "Yours. I want to see where you sleep, where you think about me. I think about you everywhere." He kicked open a door, revealing a bedroom that was unmistakably his. Masculine, elegant, with a bed that dominated the space. But yes, especially here. He laid her on the bed with such careful gentleness that it made her chest ache. Then he was above her, his weight braced on his arms, looking down at her with such intensity that she felt seen all the way to her soul. "Last chance," he whispered. "Tell me to stop and I will. Tell me you've changed your mind and I'll walk away." "I haven't changed my mind." She pulled him down for another kiss. "Make me yours, Dante. Completely." He did. What followed was slow and consuming, Dante taking his time to learn every inch of her, to make her gasp and moan and beg. He was careful of her injury but relentless in his attention, determined to make her first time with him perfect. When he finally moved inside her, when they became one in the most intimate way possible, Naomi felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just physical. This was binding, claiming, a point of no return. She was his now, completely, irrevocably his, and she'd never been happier. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Naomi's head on Dante's chest, his arm around her shoulders. Outside, snow had started to fall, the first of the season, turning the woods into a winter wonderland. "What happens now?" Naomi asked quietly. "Now you heal." Dante's fingers traced patterns on her arm. "You finish your physical therapy. You take your nursing boards. You build the life you want. And you? I'm wherever you are." He said it simply, like it was obvious. "My world, my business, everything adjusts around you now. You're my priority. That's a lot of responsibility. You saved my life. Twice, if we count yesterday. You've earned the right to rearrange my priorities." He kissed her forehead. "Besides, I'm a selfish man. Now that I have you, I'm not letting you go." "Good." She tilted her head to look at him. "Because I love you." The words hung in the air between them. Dante went very still. "Say that again," he breathed. "I love you." It was easier the second time, more certain. "I love you, Dante Moretti. Even though you're dangerous and violent and part of a world I don't understand, I love you anyway. Maybe because of those things. I don't know. I just know that when I'm with you, I feel complete. Like I found something I didn't know I was missing." "Naomi." Her name came out reverent. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not." She smiled. "Love me anyway?" "I do." The confession seemed pulled from somewhere deep. "God help me. I love you more than I thought I could love anyone. You've ruined me for anyone else. For anything else. You're it for me. Forever." "Forever is a long time." "Not long enough." He rolled, putting her beneath him again, his eyes dark with renewed desire. "Not nearly long enough for everything I want to do with you." They made love again, slower this time, savoring each touch, each kiss, each moment of connection. And when they finally slept, tangled together in Dante's bed, while snow fell outside and guards kept watch, Naomi felt safer than she'd ever felt in her life. She'd saved a mob boss. He'd saved her right back. And somehow, in the violence and chaos and danger, they'd found love. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't simple or easy or safe, but it was theirs. And that was enough. Epilogue: 6 months later, Naomi stood in front of a small clinic in Pilsen, the neighborhood where she'd grown up. The sign above the door read, Williams Community Health Center, free and sliding scale services. Dante stood beside her, his hand in hers, watching her with pride. It's perfect, she said, tears in her eyes. It's yours. He squeezed her hand. You passed your nursing boards. You wanted to help your community, so now you can. You paid for all this. I invested in something that matters. He pulled her close, not caring who saw. Dante Moretti in love was a different man than Dante Moretti conducting business. Softer, more human, capable of tenderness. You matter. Your dreams matter. Naomi turned in his arms, standing on tiptoe to kiss him. 6 months of loving Dante had taught her that he needed physical affection, craved it, thrived on it. The man who terrified half of Chicago melted when she held him, softened when she touched him, became, say, fully human when she loved him. Thank you, she whispered against his lips. Always. It had become his promise to her. Always protecting, always supporting, always loving. Ready to go inside. They entered the clinic together, Naomi's hand still in his. Her staff was already there, a small team of nurses and volunteers who believed in the mission. They'd be serving the uninsured, the undocumented, anyone who needed care and couldn't afford it. It was everything Naomi had dreamed of, and it was possible because she'd made a split-second decision 6 months ago, because she'd seen a stranger in danger and jumped to save him without calculating the cost. No regrets? Dante asked quietly as they toured the space. Naomi thought about it, about the bullet scar on her shoulder, about the nightmares she still had sometimes, about the armed guards who were still a part of her life, about loving a man whose world was dark and dangerous. No regrets, she said firmly. You? Not a single one. He pulled her close again, right there in the middle of her clinic, and kissed her thoroughly. You saved me, Bella. In more ways than you know. You saved me back. We saved each other. He rested his forehead against hers. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. Outside, Chicago went about its business. In the underworld, Dante Moretti's name was still feared and respected. In his world, he was still dangerous, still ruthless, still a man to be reckoned with. But here, in this clinic, with Naomi in his arms and her dreams becoming reality, he was just a man in love, just Dante. And that was more than enough.